بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. هذه المحاضرة مسجلة من الكتاب An Introduction to Jude the Obscure Themes. A great Wordsworth considers how hard this last novel exposes hypocrisy of conventional late Victorian society, taking on topics such as education, class, marriage, and the concept of the new woman. Jude the Obscure, the last completed novel by Thomas Hardy, received a mixed critical reception upon its publication in 1895. The novelist H.G. Wells, in an unsigned piece for the Saturday Review, eulogized there is no other novelist alive with the breadth of sympathy, knowledge, and the power for the creation of Jude, in stark contrast to the reviewer in Pall Mall Gazette renamed the book Jude the Obscure. So, Jude the Obscure, it is Thomas Hardy's last novel. It exposes, reveals the hypocrisy of the late Victorian society, criticized, questioned topics such as education, class, marriage, religion, and the concept of the new woman, the feminist new woman. Jude the Obscure, it is the last completed novel by Thomas Hardy, and it is the last novel written by Thomas Hardy, received mixed critical reception. Some critics praised the novel, and others harshly criticized the novel upon its publication in 1895. For example, our novelist H.G. Wells said there is no other novelist alive with the breadth of sympathy, the knowledge, or the power for the creation of Jude. Means there is no other novelist like Thomas Hardy who can write with the power and with the knowledge to create a character like Jude and create a novel like Jude the Obscure, while others question and criticize the novel harshly and call the book and the novel Jude the Obscene. Great Wordsworth يعتقد بأن رواية توماس هاردي جود ذا أبسكيور لقد كشفت عن نفاق المجتمع الفكتوري وعالجت وناقشت مواضيع هامة مثل التعليم والطبقة والزواج وفكرة المرأة الجديدة. رواية جود أبسكيور هي آخر رواية كاملة كتبها الكاتب الإنجليزي توماس هاردي. لقد تلقت ردود فعل مختلفة فور نشرها في عام 1895. على سبيل المثال من الردود الإيجابية الروائي الشهير H.G. ويلز والذي كتب ليس هناك روائي على قيد الحياة بهذه القوة والمعرفة والإنسانية يستطيع أن يكتب رواية مثل رواية جود ذا أبسكيور، أو يستطيع أن يخلق شخصية مثل شخصية جود. ولكن هناك بعض المنتقدين كانوا كمان قاسيين في النقد وسموها هذه الرواية يعني مش كتير رواية تحض على الفسوق فسموها جود الفاسق. Jude the Obscene and branded the book a work of naked squalor and ugliness. The Bishop of Wakefield went even further, being reputedly so disgusted by the novel, he threw his copy into the fire. Even Edmund Gosse, a generally sympathetic critic of Hardy's work and a personal friend, was given to reflect what has Providence done to Mr. Hardy that he should rise up in the Arab land of Wessex and shake his fist at his creator. So other people critique the novel harshly and call it Jude the Obscure, and they consider it as an ugly work. Even the Bishop of Wakefield went further. He felt disgusted by after reading the novel, and he threw his copy of the novel into the fire. Edmund Gosse, and he is a friend and sympathetic critic of Thomas Hardy's work, and a personal friend, wondered what happened to Mr. Hardy to critique God in this way, what made him to rise up in the Arab land of Wessex, I mean the countryside of Thomas Hardy, and challenge God and challenge the religious institution and shake his fist at his creator. من الآراء اللي كانت قاسية وانتقدت الرواية، واعتبروها بأن جود هو فاسق وأن هذه الرواية قبيحة وأن هذه الرواية انتهاك لمعايير المجتمع. الكاهن لمنطقة ويكفيلد يعني لم يعني يشعر بالسعادة عند قراءة الرواية، وألقى النسخة الخاصة به في النار، حرقها إدموند جوسي، وهو ناقد لأعمال توماس هاردي وصديقي الشخصي. كمان تعجب وتساءل لماذا توماس هاردي يتحدى السلطة الدينية ويوجه قبضته باتجاه الله واتجاه الخالق. ماذا فعل الله وماذا فعل الخالق إلى هاردي لكي يتمرد بهذه الطريقة في المجتمع الريفي لوسكس، وهنا يقصد المنطقة التي تربى وولد فيها توماس هاردي دورست. Education, out of the themes, education provides the means for an upward social mobility, but in doing so, it also challenges the established order that gives advantages and privileges to those already at the higher end of the class system. From the 1870s, this had been a reason for Oxford University, in particular, to hold back the spread of adult education to the working class in order to protect the already overcrowded middle class professions. So education provides a means for upward social progress, mobility, and it challenges the established order that gives the advantages and the privileges to those already at the higher end of the class system. Education at that time was only reserved for the rich and upper class people. Working and poor people were not allowed to get educated. From 1870, Oxford University tried to hold back the spread of adult education to the working class in an effort to preserve the status quo and to protect the crowded middle, the already crowded middle class professions. We know that at this time, people who graduated from university had, great jobs in parliament and in politics and in higher jobs in society in order to keep the status of the class and the upper class, and they try to reserve education for the rich and upper class of people and they prevent poor and working people from joining in order to keep the class system in England, the upper class people followed by the middle class and the working class. They don't want other groups like working and poor class to move into society and to move upward and to progress in society. إذا التعليم هو يوفر الوسائل من أجل التطور الاجتماعي، وهذا يعتبر تحدي للنظام الطبقي القائم، والذي يمنح امتيازات آه، للطبقات الغنية في العام 1870 كان هناك سبب كافي لجامعة أوكسفورد لكي تمنع الفرصة عن الطبقات العاملة الفقيرة من التعليم، للحفاظ على النظام الطبقي وللحفاظ على الوظائف للطبقة المتوسطة والأغنياء. فمنعت التعليم عن الطبقة العاملة والطبقة الفقيرة بهدف المحافظة على الوظائف وتكون خاصة بالأغنياء، والحفاظ على النظام الطبقي واللي احنا بنسميه established order. For that reason, we find that Jude meets nothing but resistance from the authoritative Christminster, hardest fictional name for Oxford, in his pursuit of education and social improvement, social mobility. When he writes to the college masters for advice, he receives but a single reply, a brief letter from the master of Christminster, Victorian College, stating that judging from Jude's description of himself as a working man, I venture to think that you will have a much better chance of success in life by remaining in your own sphere and sticking to your trade than by adopting another course. And it was a frustrating letter to the dream of Jude, who worked hard to learn the classical language, Greek and Latin, beside the religious books, while working in order to have a chance to pursue his dream and get educated at the Christminster. And here, the letter from the master of Christminster University was like signing execution letter for his dream. And here Jude met resistance from the authorities of Christminster when he aspired to get education and improve his social lot, his social status. And that was seen when he wrote a letter to the college master for advice, and the master of Christminster Victorian College, which advised him to stay in his lot, to stay in his place, and not think of education. إذا جود لقد قابل مقاومة من قبل السلطات والإدارة في جامعة كريستمنستر، وهي الاسم الخيالي لجامعة أكسفورد الآن، بمحاولة للتعليم وتغيير وضعه الاجتماعي. فكتب رسالة إلى رئيس الجامعة يطلب منه إعطائه ومنحه الفرصة للالتحاق والقبول في الجامعة، ولكن جاءت الرسالة بشكل واضح من رئيس الجامعة وتصف جود بأنه هو مجرد عامل، ويقول أنا أتجرأ بالتفكير أنك يعني يوجد لديك فرصة للنجاح بحياتك من خلال البقاء في وظيفتك كعامل، وأحسن لأنه أفضل بكثير من أن تتجه إلى طريق آخر. وهذه كانت رسالة بمثابة رسالة الإعدام إلى جود، إعدام لأحلامه وطموحاته. الإنسان الذي كان يعمل في النهار ويدرس في الليل اللغات اللاتينية واليونانية والكتب الدينية من أجل تحقيق متطلبات القبول بداخل الجامعة، وثم هنا تأتي الرسالة التي تذكره بوصوله وتذكره بواقعه الأليم، أنك أنت عامل فيجب أن تبقى في هذا المكان ولا تتحرك منه ولا تسلك طريقا آخر. In other words, advice from the Christminster is that the working classes should remain working class Access to Oxford and Cambridge at this time also also uh, also required a detailed knowledge of the classical Greek and Latin texts, both taught extensively at public schools. Jude attempts to teach himself Latin and the Greek from various primers, although admirable, were never going to put him on equal footing with those who could afford an expensive education. Yes, the advice from the master and the head of the Christian University is to remain at the working class and to stay in his job, which is better to him than joining another branch. Access to Oxford and Cambridge at that time required a detailed knowledge of the Greek, classical Greek and Latin school, and they were taught extensively at expensive public schools. And we find Jude try to learn these classical, these classical Greek and Latin texts alone by himself, self-study, because he could not afford to join public schools, expensive public schools. We know that he is orphan. We know that he shares a room with his aunt and, uh, and Foley. So how can he join public schools to learn classical and Latin, Greek and Latin texts and languages? And here another difficulty. Yes, he tried, and he attempted to teach himself Latin and Greek from various sources. He wrote to his former teacher, the last one, about, books. These attempts were admirable, but these attempts will never give him an equal footing and equal status with those who can afford or could afford an expensive education. بكلمات أخرى النصيحة كانت من مدير جامعة كريستمنستر بأنه يبقى في طبقته العاملة، مع العلم بأن الالتحاق بجامعة أكسفورد وكامبريدج في ذلك الوقت كان يتطلب معرفة تفصيلية بالكتب اليونانية واللاتينية الكلاسيكية، والتي كانت بالغالب تدرس في المدارس العامة المكلفة ماديا. نعم، جود حاول أن يعلم نفسه باللغات اللاتينية واليونانية دراسة ذاتية. أرسل إلى معلمه السابق للاستون من أجل الكتب، ولكن هذه المحاولات مع أنها ممدوحة ويثنى عليها، ولكن لا يمكن مقارنتها على بنفس المسافة وبنفس المساواة مع الناس أو مع طلاب ذهبوا إلى المدارس العامة باهظة الثمن وباهظة التكاليف. We're never going to put him on equal footing with those who could afford an expensive education. So again, the middle class rules and middle class money acted to keep working class check. And even though change was looming, Ruskin College established with the aim of providing educational opportunities for working class men, denied access to university, and was founded in 1899. The possibility of Jude and people like him gaining economic mobility out out of the working class via education remained unlikely. So the middle class ruled, and middle class money and rich class and upper class money acted to keep the working class in check and to keep them from moving upward. And even change was looming that education will be possible for the working class people. Ruskin College, which was established with the aim and goal of providing educational opportunities for working class men, denied access to university and denied them the access to join university. So we come to conclusion that the possibility of Jude and people like him, poor working people, will never get money through education, will never change the situation through education. So gaining economic mobility out of the working class through the way or via education remain unlikely and not possible. So middle class rules and middle class money acted to control the working class people of the working classes from moving socially upward. إذا الطبقات المتوسطة والغنية وقوانينها كانت تلعب دورا حاسما في وضع حد لطموح الطبقات العاملة ومنعها من التقدم اجتماعيا على أعلى السلم، بالرغم من أن هناك كانت حبوب لرياح التغيير. حتى كلية راسكن والذي تم بناؤها بهدف منح فرص تعليمية للفقراء منعتهم من الالتحاق بالجامعة. لذلك نصل إلى نتيجة بأن إمكانية جود وأناس مثله وأقرانه أنهم يتغير واقعهم اقتصاديا واجتماعيا من خلال التعليم ما زال فرصة بعيدة المنال وبعيدة التحقيق. إذا عجبتكم هذه المحاضرة ما تنسوش اللايك وما تنسوش التعليق، وإلى اللقاء آخر، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.